Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This
Hmm.
time we're focusing on one source, a review of Absolute Wonder Woman, #1. Now if you're thinking, oh, another Wonder Woman story, well this one's a little different. It's not your typical Amazonian princess tale.
Definitely not. This is Wonder Woman reimagined within DC's absolute line. It's like they took these classic heroes and gave them a grittier, a more experimental feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the hook, right? It's designed to bring in new readers who maybe want something a little bit edgier, a little bit darker, but they're still honoring the core of those characters.
Yeah, it's like DC saying, hey, you think you know these characters? Think again.
And they really go for it with this Wonder Woman origin story. I mean, forget
Ways.
Paradise Island, forget the Misera where she's usually raised. This Diana is being raised in hell.
Whoa, in hell.
Yeah, and not just anywhere in hell, but is the princess of the underworld.
Now that's intense.
And to make it even more wild, she's under the tutelage of Circe,
Yeah.
the powerful sorceress.
Cersei, wait a minute. Isn't she usually one of Wonder Woman's biggest enemies?
Exactly. As most stories, she's a straight-up villain.
Yeah.
But here she is acting as a maternal figure. It throws the whole hero-villain thing out the window.
Yeah, that's what makes this premise so interesting, right? It adds a ton of complexity to Diana's character. It makes you think, how does that upbringing shape her? I mean, can she still be that beacon of goodness and compassion when she's raised in, well, a hellish environment?
Right. And that's what got me hooked, too. I mean, when I first heard Wonder Woman Raised in Hell, I thought, how can that even work?
Mm-hmm.
But then you think about it, and it raises so many questions.
Yeah, like does her inherent goodness even stand a chance?
Exactly. And the reviewer really seemed to latch on to that, too. Oh, and they mentioned being big fans of this creative team, Kelly Thompson, the writer, and Hayden Sherman, the artist.
Oh, yeah, I read that too. Their existing fandom definitely adds weight to their opinion. You can tell they went in with high expectations and were still impressed by what they saw.
So it's not just blind praise. It seems like they genuinely dug this new take on Wonder Woman. And speaking of different takes, I couldn't help but think about George Perez's classic run on Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, George Perez. That's like the definitive Wonder Woman for a lot of people. He really nailed her compassion, her growth, and he brought the Misera to life.
Exactly. And the reviewer actually drew a comparison between his run and this new absolute take. But even though this origin is way darker, they say it still captures that coming-of-age essence that Perez nailed.
Well, that's interesting. So we're still seeing Diana trying to find her place in the world, figuring out who she is, but now it's with this whole raised by a supervillain in the underworld twist.
Yeah, it's like that classic coming-of-age story, but with a really dark twist.
So it's not just about making Wonder Woman edgy or badass. It's about holding on to that emotional core that makes her so compelling.
I love that. So we've talked about this story and how it connects to those past interpretations. But what about the art? I mean, the review was raving about Hayden Sherman's style.
Yeah, the art is definitely a huge part of what makes this absolute Wonder Woman stand out. It really leans into the darker, more unsettling aspects of the setting. It's gritty. But it's more than that. The reviewer mentioned dynamic paneling. That's where the panels, the boxes that hold the art, are arranged in a way that emphasizes the action or the emotion.
Oh, so it's not just what's in the panels, but how they're laid out on the page.
Exactly. Like they highlighted this one fight scene where the panels are tilted at these crazy angles, so it makes the world feel off-kilter, almost like it's about to fall apart.
Wow, I can totally picture that.
And it really plays into that feeling of unease you get from Diana's upbringing in hell.
It's like the art itself is reflecting that inner turmoil.
So cool. And how about Wonder Woman herself? How did Sherman depict her? I mean, she's being raised in this harsh underworld. Well, the reviewer used this great phrase. They described her design as a gentle giant. Like, even though she's surrounded by all this darkness, she still has that strength and compassion that we associate with Wonder Woman. She's physically imposing, but there's also a softness to her features, a kindness in her eyes.
I can see it now.
Yeah.
It's like that inherent goodness is still shining through. That nature versus nurture debate playing out visually.
Exactly. And don't forget the colors. The review mentioned the colorist, Jordi Belair. I think they contribute to the mood as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What does he have with the colors?
They were praising Belair's work for complementing Sherman's art perfectly. They said the colors are rich and textured, but also muted and kind of unsettling, which fits the tone of that absolute universe perfectly.
Wow. So we've got this compelling origin story. The incredible art that just pulls you in, and this creative team that seems to be hitting it out of the park. Anything else from the review that really grabbed you?
Yeah, one more thing I thought was really interesting. The reviewer pointed out how the environment changes to reflect Diana's development. Like Diana in Circe's home, that palace in the underworld. It evolves visually throughout the issue, And those changes subtly show the growing bond between them.
Oh, that's such a cool detail. It's like the environment itself is another character reflecting that emotional journey.
Exactly. And in the end, the reviewer concludes that Absolute Wonder Woman #1 is a strong start to what's looking like a really captivating series.
I am so on board with this. This deep dive has definitely got me intrigued. What about you? What really jumped out at you from this review?
Honestly, what really struck me was how Thompson managed to blend those classic Wonder Woman themes with this dark, gritty setting. It's such a tough balance to strike, but she seems to be pulling it off.
Yeah, I'm really curious about how she handles the psychological and moral implications of Diana's upbringing. I feel like that could lead to some fascinating character development.
Absolutely. There's so much to unpack here. And it raises a really interesting question. If you were reimagining a classic hero for a grittier, more modern audience, which one would you choose? And what changes would you make to their origin story? Think about that for a second. What hero would you flip on their head? What dark twist would you add to their beginning? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors to delve deeper into this new Absolute Wonder Woman. Welcome back. And we were just talking about how Kelly Thompson, the writer, is making some pretty daring moves, blending those classic Wonder Woman themes with this much darker setting.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see how she pulls that off.
Hmm.
I mean, Wonder Woman is like the embodiment of love and compassion. How do those things even exist in a world where they're practically non-existent?
Yeah.
Does she compromise, become hardened? It makes me think of that scene in the movie where she walks across no man's land.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember that scene. Such a powerful moment. It showed how much she believes in doing what's right, even when everything is horrible around her. I bet this new series will tap into that kind of inner strength. Yeah.
Exactly. And the review even hinted that maybe this harsh environment might actually make those themes stronger.
Yeah.
Like when you put something under pressure, it creates a diamond.
I like that analogy. It's not just about physical strength either. The review talked about how Thompson uses this origin story to explore power. I mean, Diana isn't just any princess. She's the princess of hell, raised by one of the most powerful sorceresses out there.
Okay, so she's got incredible power, literally and figuratively. But how does that mess with someone who's also inherently good?
Right. Talk about internal conflict. The review even wondered, will Diana embrace her darker side? Or will she rebel against it? It's like, can she rise above everything she was taught and stay true to herself?
It's giving Shakespearean drama. It's not just about punching bad guys. It's about these huge moral questions.
And that's what makes this reimagined Wonder Woman so captivating. It's watching her wrestle with who she is, trying to balance the darkness she was raised in with the light inside her.
The classic nature versus nurture debate, but with a superhero twist. And speaking of twists, the reviewer mentioned the ending of the issue sets up some interesting possibilities for the series. What can you tell us without spoiling too much? What's next for Diana?
Well, it sounds like her world is about to get a whole lot bigger. She's been kind of sheltered, living in that underworld palace with Cersei. But now it seems like she's going to head out into the wider Absolute universe.
Oh, interesting. And we know that the Absolute Universe is filled with these reimagined DC characters. They all have that darker edge. So who might she run into?
Right. The possibilities are endless. Just imagine the team-ups, the fights, the unexpected alliances. Will she meet Batman? Or a totally different Superman? What about her old enemies like Cheetah or Ares? But, with that absolute twist.
The story's just getting started. Like, this first issue was just the launch pad.
Yeah, the review definitely makes it feel like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg.
It makes you wonder what the reviewer wanted people to think about after reading their review. What was the main message?
I think they really wanted to highlight the power of reimagining things, Even these iconic characters like Wonder Woman can be shown in new and exciting ways without losing what makes them special. It's like they're saying, don't be scared to shake things up, to try new things, even with the characters everyone loves.
It reminds us there's always something new to discover, even with characters we think we know really well.
Absolutely. It shows that stories can always grow and change and surprise us, even the ones we think we've heard a million times.
So after all this, would you say Absolute Wonder Woman #1 is worth checking out?
Oh, definitely. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, you can't miss this new take on her story. And even if you're not a huge fan, it's a great way to jump into the whole Absolute line.
It sounds like a perfect example of what this new line is trying to do. Taking risks, pushing boundaries, and reminding us why we love these characters in the first place.
For sure. And it's all done with amazing art, too. From what the review said, it sounds incredible.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything from this review. But before we wrap up, I've got a question for everyone listening. If you could reimagine a classic hero for a grittier, more modern audience, Which hero would you choose? And what would be your absolute twist? We want to hear your ideas. We're back, and I am still thinking about those absolute reimaginings. It's really got my mind going.
It's a fun thought experiment,
It's
right?
just
It makes you really think about what makes those classic characters tick.
totally. And I keep coming back to that question the review asked, can Wonder Woman's goodness actually survive in that messed up environment? I mean, that's a huge deal.
It is. It's that whole nature versus nurture debate. Was Diana born with that compassion and sense of justice, or could it be, worn down or even twisted by the way she was raised?
It makes you think maybe this series will show that good and evil aren't always so simple. Maybe it's not where you come from, but the choices you make.
Yeah, maybe this absolute world is all about challenging how we see heroes. Maybe things are a lot less black and white in this grittier reality, more shades of gray.
Right. And that ties into what we were saying before about power. Diana might be the princess of hell, but that doesn't mean she has to follow that path.
Exactly. She has the power to decide who she wants to be, to make her own choices. That's a powerful message, even outside of the comics.
It really is. It reminds us that we all have choices to try to be good even when surrounded by bad stuff. And that makes her even more heroic, right?
Yeah.
Because she's not just good by default. She's choosing to be good despite everything.
It shows how strong she is. You know how much she believes in doing the right thing no matter what.
Oh.
And that's what makes Wonder Woman such a great character.
I could agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive on Absolute Wonder Woman #1, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What do you hope they're thinking about?
I think the biggest thing is perspective. This review makes us look at familiar stories in a new way, to see how they can be reinterpreted and given unexpected twists. Even iconic characters can surprise us. There's always something new to discover.
So well put. And it's a good reminder to be open to the unexpected, both in the stories we love and in our own lives. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to explore, to challenge what you think you know.
Absolutely. You never know what you might find when you step outside your comfort zone and let yourself be surprised.
That's a fantastic note to end on. A huge thanks to you for this awesome deep dive.
Oh.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey into Absolute Wonder Woman. If you're looking for a comic that's bold and thought-provoking with incredible art, we definitely recommend checking it out. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.